Vikings survived winter with no fire. This ancient floor outsmarts modern homes. Cold didn't scare the Vikings. It submitted to them. While modern homes panic the moment the heater clicks off, Viking households survived brutal winters without burning nonstop fires or wasting precious fuel. No thermostats, no insulation foam, no electric blankets. Just a floor that quietly worked like a living system. And here's the wild part. Modern science understands why it worked, but modern homes still refuse to use it. If you value hard-earned wisdom pulled straight from history's front lines, tap that subscribe button like you're locking in a survival advantage before the storm hits. Now let's get straight into it. This wasn't magic. It was physics, biology, and ruthless efficiency. The Vikings built their homes around the ground, not above it. Most modern houses fight the earth. Vikings partnered with it. Their secret weapon was the insulated earth floor, layered with organic materials that trapped heat, blocked moisture, and regulated temperature without fire. So, the core idea was simple. Heat doesn't just disappear, it moves. And, well, the ground, when used correctly, actually becomes a massive thermal battery. Viking floors were built directly on compacted soil. But not just on bare dirt. No, that would freeze, sweat, and rot over time. Instead, they layered materials like clay, gravel, straw, ash, and even animal byproducts into a dense, breathable mass. Each layer had its own purpose. Clay sealed up drafts. Gravel allowed for drainage. Straw trapped air. Ash helped to repel pests and absorb moisture. And as the years went by, these layers compressed into something much closer to a natural composite than just a primitive floor. Once that floor was packed and sealed, it stayed remarkably stable in temperature. Even when the outside air plunged below freezing, the ground beneath the home remained far warmer than the air above. That stored warmth would slowly radiate upward, keeping interiors livable, even when fires burned low or not at all. Modern measurements of soil temperature confirm this. Just a few feet below the surface, ground temperatures stay relatively constant year-round, often hovering around 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit in cold climates. Vikings didn't know the numbers. They knew the result. Warm feet, dry homes. Fewer fires. And warmth starts at the feet. Cold floors steal heat from the body faster than cold air ever could. Vikings understood that instinctively, even if they couldn't explain the science. By insulating the floor, they reduced heat loss at the most critical contact point, right where people sat, stood, and slept. You could actually survive much colder air if your feet stayed warm. That meant less fuel burned, less smoke inhaled, and, well, fewer resources wasted overall. Smoke really mattered. Fires inside longhouses weren't just for heat. They were dangerous. Smoke caused lung damage, eye irritation, and long-term health problems. By designing homes that didn't rely on constant fires, Vikings reduced indoor smoke exposure without sacrificing comfort. That's not primitive living. That's intelligent risk management. There's another layer modern builders overlook: moisture control. Cold kills through dampness long before it kills through temperature. Viking floors breathed. They absorbed excess moisture from boots, breath, and melting snow, then slowly released it without becoming soggy. This kept the interior dry, which, dramatically increased perceived warmth. A dry 50-degree room feels far warmer than a damp 60-degree one. Modern homes trap moisture. Plastic barriers, sealed concrete, and synthetic insulation. Well, they lock humidity inside. That's why heaters run nonstop and still feel ineffective. Vikings avoided that trap centuries ago using nothing but layered earth. The floor also acted as insulation against wind. Viking homes were low, tight, and heavy. Wind couldn't snake under floorboards or rip heat away from crawl spaces. Everything was grounded, literally. Heat stayed where it belonged. What really separates this from romantic history is durability. These floors improved with age. As people walked on them, the layers compacted further, sealing cracks and increasing insulation. Ash added alkalinity that discouraged mold and insects. Organic fibers compressed into natural insulation. The longer the house stood, the better the floor performed. Compare that to modern flooring, which, degrades, separates, and fails over time. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. Modern builders know this works. Earth-sheltered homes, thermal mass floors, and passive ground coupling are all well documented in building science. The problem isn't knowledge, it's convenience and cost models. Concrete slabs are fast. Synthetic insulation is easy. Long-term resilience doesn't sell as well as quick builds. Vikings didn't build for resale value. They built for survival. This ancient floor system also explains why Viking homes stayed warmer even with minimal wall insulation. Heat loss through the ground actually accounts for a massive percentage of energy loss in cold climates. Fix the floor, and the rest becomes manageable. And this wasn't limited to just one region or tribe. Variations of this system, popped up across cold climates for thousands of years. Different materials were used, but the same principle held true. Work with the earth, not against it. Today, some off-grid builders are, quietly rediscovering this approach. They're not copying it exactly, but instead borrowing the logic. Dense earthen floors, natural fibers, breathable layers, and ground coupling, all making a comeback. And guess what happens? You get lower heating costs, more stable indoor temperatures, and, honestly, homes that stay livable even when the power fails. The Vikings didn't beat winter with fire, they beat it with design. That's the lesson modern prepping often misses. Real preparedness isn't about gadgets. It's about systems that just keep working when fuel runs out and, technology fails. Honestly, the smartest survival tools are the ones that don't even need to be turned on. And here's the part most people miss. You don't need to live like a Viking to learn from one. Understanding how heat moves, how moisture behaves, and how materials interact gives you leverage. Whether you're building, renovating, or just thinking about resilience, the floor beneath you matters more than the heater above you. This is frontline wisdom, quiet, unflashy, ruthlessly effective. If this kind of knowledge matters to you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel, share this with someone who still thinks survival is all about gear, and, stay locked in. History already solved more problems than we realize. We just have to listen.